Hello, welcome. How are you all doing? Good. Welcome back if you're still in this room for the previous session. I see some faces. Well, for now, we have Les Grove presenting us on finding and fixing organizational potholes. And he is a principal Agile project manager at Catalyst. Les has master's degree in software engineering and holds certifications as a certified Scrum professional, safe project management professional, and he has over 30 years of experience in project management, software development, and Agile. He was involved with PNW from 2002 to 2015, long timer, as an author, reviewer, volunteer, training person, board member, and now a speaker. So let's welcome Les.
Thank you. Bill and Carmen, can you hear me okay? All right, fantastic. Now this is going to be a little interactive, so be sure if you want to participate, there's going to be some real-time polling during this session, so either text LesGrove983 to 22333 or go to pollev.com/lesgrove.983. So. All right, so the theme of this conference is on the road to quality. So if we take that metaphor a little further, we can think of the team as a car. So the team gets, or the car gets fuel, and that would be like requirements and user stories. And they would have to deal with mechanical problems, so that can be like inspect and adapt. And so if we extend this metaphor further, we can think of the organization as the road. All teams travel on it, and any impediments that the organization imposes on its teams are like potholes on the road that the team travels. So this is where an Agile coach can come in, because organizations often don't see the potholes that they create for their teams. So one of the things that's not in my introduction is that I, at Catalyst, lead the Agile Coaching Center of Excellence. So we do coaching, training, and assessments for our clients as well as our internal teams, and with the goal of improving agility for everybody. So what I'm going to cover today is I'm going to cover Catalyst's road. So the background or organizational landscape that Catalyst sees itself in and that we're working in. I'm going to talk about navigation, so how an Agile coach can help navigate an improvement strategy around the organizational impediments. I want to talk about mapping, which is how agility assessments can show the potholes where the teams and the organization are finding and can improve themselves. I'll talk about road cones, so this is identifying the worst potholes and impediments in the teams and organizations, and where fixing them would provide the most benefit. And I'll talk about next stops to see where we're going next. And I'm continuing with the theme. So first we're going to do a couple of polls. So let's figure out the bigger quality pothole. So I know this audience is made up from people from different companies and different locations working on different projects in different domains, but that's the point. So the statement is, and the question is, our test coverage satisfies our test quality goals. Now if that is always happening on your team, select A for always, B for very often, C for often, D for occasionally, E rarely, F never. When I practiced this at work, this wasn't working, so I'm very excited that this is actually working real time. All right, very interesting. Did everybody get their chance to? All right, so next one. Critical defects are prevented from reaching production. Same choices, A through always, F for never. Oh, somebody changed theirs. Peer pressure, perhaps? It's all private. I don't see,
That's such an odd question.
Really?
Sometimes people rationalize putting things in production.
Okay, good point. All right, so let's go back. Number 1, number 2. So just based on these 2 data points, which pothole should we fix first?
First one.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious, right? Almost like I planned it that way, but it's not how it happened. I had no idea how this is going to work. So, just like this audience, Catalyte is diverse. So Catalyte is a onshore outsourcing company that provides teams that build mobile and web applications. So we work in different domains. So we have teams that work in retail and e-commerce, healthcare, travel and hospitality, technology, public sector, logistics, finance, lots of different domains. Our teams are also in different locations. We have 3 offices in Portland, Chicago, and Baltimore. We also have, not only do we have clients in our cities, but we also have clients across the country. And our teams are working at the Catalyte offices, in the client offices, or a combination of the 2, or multiple Catalyte offices as well. Our team configurations are also diverse. So we have teams that are completely made up of Catalyte people. We have teams that are made up of Catalyte people and people from the client. And we have teams that are made up of people from the client, people from Catalyte, and people from a completely different third-party vendor. So we have teams in different domains, different locations, and different configurations. So with this diversity, we have to trust that the teams on an individual basis can improve themselves. But Catalyte wants to make sure that they're not imposing any impediments on these multiple teams. So we have to find those organizational impediments and uncover those. And we can't wait for the multiple teams to keep bringing their problems up and look for patterns. So how do we go about finding patterns or finding those impediments that are caused by the organization? And like I said, teams kind of help themselves, and retrospectives are great for improvement within the team. But what are those organizational impediments that a single team cannot remove on their own? Things like maybe lack of knowledge or training, inadequate tools or poor utilization of a tool like Jira, not using the Agile framework correctly, no cross-team learning, waterfallish processes outside of the team, maybe over-management, kind of preventing self-direction. And there's some things that are unique to Catalyte. So things like an issue with a client impacting multiple teams, or how we form teams, or even one that we see over and over again because most of our product owners are on the client side, unavailable product owners or ineffective product owners. So this is where Agile coaching comes in. Now there are many interpretations of Agile coaches and many types of Agile coaches. So you have coaches that are very process and methodology focused, and they're very centralized, very cookie cutter, looking at KPIs. You have team coaches that just focus on individual teams and get them improving. And you have enterprise coaches which work with management and executives to get, so they can understand how to get their companies more agile. So I'm going to use the definition from the Scrum Alliance, which is Agile coaches are people who deliver value across multiple teams and organizations by working with team stakeholders and management, facilitating, training, mentoring, providing leadership, supporting collaboration, developing consistency, and managing impediments, otherwise known as potholes. So what do I mean by managing impediments? I mean identifying impediments, understanding the root cause and the impact of those impediments, prioritizing those, coming up with solutions, implementing those solutions, and seeing if those solutions work. So that first step of identifying the impediments, what's the first step, or what's the way to do that? So one choice is to have the coaches attend ceremonies for all the teams, maybe interview a bunch of team members, and start looking for patterns. This would be very time consuming. You would have to follow a team for more than one sprint because, things change with teams, and teams can have a bad sprint or a great sprint and kind of hide some of the problems that are being caused by the organization. You could also review teams' retrospective summary reports if they capture them. But sometimes organizational impediments aren't recorded because teams might be just assuming that that's a way of life. Now, whereas choice number one is driven by anecdote and gut feel, agility assessments is a way to kind of quickly identify those impediments that impact the team as well as the organization. And that way you can find potential next steps to increase agility. So there are kind of two kind of levels that assessments kind of target at. So first is the team level assessments, and that's kind of where you find where a team is on its agile journey, and the team can use the results to choose the areas where they want to pursue to increase their agility. And things like this can be incorporated into a retrospective as part of the gathered data activity. And then you have organizational assessments, and those are could be either just assessing at the organization level or collecting multiple team assessments and looking for patterns to see where the organization is on its agile journey. So you also might find where teams need external help, areas where teams are not performing consistently, maybe areas where all teams are not performing well at all. And then you can choose those areas to improve based on the organizational value of the improvements. Now, there are two kind of general types of assessments. One is a checklist type assessment, and that's to ensure that the team is kind of doing the basics based on some sort of oracle, like the Scrum Guide. And there's some examples. There are what I call frameworks, and these are a bit more involved and complicated than a checklist. And they provide direction for progressing on agile paths. And there's some examples there. I found actually a website with 79 tools and checklists for doing team assessment, organizational assessments. And the link is in my paper, so you don't have to bother writing it down unless you don't want to read the paper. So here's an example of a checklist. This is the unofficial Scrum checklist. And as you can see, it's looking at the basics of Scrum. And if a team is doing the individual things, then you check off the checklist. So looking at what the product owner does, and the sprint backlog, and daily Scrum happening, and sprint planning meetings. And you can even go a little advanced where you can look at whether they're doing burn down charts and whether velocity is measured. And with this, the team kind of can check off the boxes of things they're doing, and if they want to improve, they can start doing the things they didn't check the boxes on. And here's an example of a framework. This is a lot more complex. So you can see for each activity or section, there are levels of maturity, for lack of a better term. So for each activity, the team can find out where they are in that particular area. And there are more areas, I just had to fit it in one slide, but at the team level here, you have things like team dynamics and structure, product, process mechanics, and engineering practices. At the organizational level, not only do you have structure, projects in progress, and metrics, but you also have things like impediments, tools and technology, and management of teams. And this is just two examples of that list of 79. So given the sheer number of agility assessment tools out there, we decided to create our own. We wanted to focus on specific areas that we felt were important to Catalyte, and no one tool kind of captured that. But we did borrow and steal where we could in order to kind of build the tool that we wanted to build. But first we needed to determine the requirements for our tool. So first they had to be something that could be filled out quickly. And we've kind of figured that 15, 20 minutes tops would probably be a good goal to reach. We wanted the results to reflect the team and not individuals. Agility is about the team, and any assessment that a team would fill out would be need to focus on improving the team. And this also means that individual responses would be kept confidential, and when we compared teams, you couldn't necessarily identify which team was which unless you were that particular team. We wanted to ensure that participants need no other instructions or guidance other than what was provided. So we wanted them to be able to figure out and fill it out without having to come back to us for help with filling things out. We wanted to say, here it is, go bring it back when you're done. We wanted the results to identify opportunities for team improvement. A team is more likely to participate if they get something in return. So we want the team results to be able to be used for their own excellence. We also want to identify improvements or regressions over time. So we wanted to do follow-up assessments. Our plan is every quarter to provide additional snapshots to see whether teams are improving, or staying stagnant, or actually getting worse. And we also want to be able to accommodate any flavor of Agile, not just Scrum. So we wanted to, the assessment to work on Kanban and whatever, because it's our clients that often dictate the flavor of Agile to be used. So any assessment tool we use has to be kind of neutral as far as framework. And finally, we wanted the ultimate goal was for the Center of Excellence to be able to aggregate the results and identify the organizational impediments. So we wanted to find the patterns to indicate the potholes that might be affecting many or all teams. And teams may not even be aware that they're, because they're more focused internally. So the topics we decided to assess on were these 7. So team integrity is the ability for the team to get its work done without external interference. And then we had requirements. So this is kind of the creation and management of user stories, retrospectives, whether they were doing them and doing them right, backlog management, refactoring architecture, which was more on the technical side of things, and of course quality. And then each topic would have 5 to 8 questions or statements, and we gave them a Likert scale because we like the idea of having a scale of responses, just like you did at the beginning of this, because in an iterative environment, we wanted to make sure whether things were happening every sprint, and look for those times that maybe they're being inconsistent. So otherwise, they, like with a checklist type assessment, they'd say, yeah, we do retrospectives, so we did one 3 months ago. So as far as delivering the assessment, we started out with a Word document, and I'm going to cover in one slide, which is like half the paper, because it's more interesting to talk about the other stuff. So we started out with a Word document. This is something that we handed teams to use during their retrospectives. So it's something that they would fill out together as a team. Then we went to an Excel spreadsheet. We found this spreadsheet on the Scaled Agile framework, the SAFE framework. It was pretty much very similar to ours, but they had an Excel spreadsheet, so they had a scoring system. So now we have that ability to see improvements over time. But the problem with having the team fill out an assessment together was that stronger voices prevailed, and or the tendency would to score themselves higher, kind of like a group thing. So we actually went to a Google form, and those would be given out to the teams individually, and we did see the responses start spreading out. So what I'm showing here is those 7 topics. I've only chosen 8 to kind of illustrate the point of doing these assessments. So you can kind of see how everybody scored, or the teams that I'm showing you, how they scored. And I'm going to ask you guys, what potholes do you see by looking at this chart?
Architecture.
What about architecture?
Just looking at the lines, and it's like there's a very big gap right
Okay.
there. Several tables.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Requirements is another one.
What about requirements?
It has a wide distribution, everything from 20% up to about 80%.
Uh-huh.
You see some of the teams are more matures by just having a bigger circumference. You
Okay.
can focus on
Yeah.
specific teams.
Yeah, good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, aside from the distribution, blue team and orange team are just really not very highly rated teams overall. Like, that's a little strange.
Okay.
But it's a self-assessment,
Yes.
so it might have to do with trust amongst the team members and in the process.
Yes. Perhaps.
The architecture is definitely bimodal compared to the others.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys got most of them. So yeah, architecture, there's this whole group that's way out there as far as architecture is concerned. 3 areas had large spreads. As a matter of fact, requirements and backlog management had the biggest standard deviation. And then quality, 4 teams are doing good and 4 teams are kind of straggling. So, what can we do there? And this is kind of quality focused, so we'll focus on qualities. But so there are 2 teams that weren't doing very well overall, smallest circumference. And it turns out that these 2 teams were newer teams. And so maybe a pothole here is maybe we need to look at how we ramp up and onboard teams and get them performing a lot quicker. So let's do a deep dive into the quality. This is a quality conference. Let's deep dive into quality. So we did the first 2, these are the 5 statements that we covered in our quality portion of the assessment. We did the first 2 at the beginning of this. For fun, let's do the next 3. So our product is stable.
At what point?
That's all they were given. Our product is stable. If it's Agile, it should always be stable, right?
Depends if you have firmware or hardware.
Depends on what?
How much hardware you have in the
Depends how much hardware. We have no hardware. We have devices. All right. Number 4, tests are automated where possible. All right. Oh.
Come work for always.
I was going to say, who's good as the always, because I work
That'll make life a lot easier.
All right. And number 5, test results are used as a basis for code integration and deployment.
I mean, those are 2 different things.
Automated or non-automated tests? Just whatever test?
But it's the result. It's the result that's used.
Yes.
The test results, integration and deployment, those are 2 different gates, at least in our organization.
Yeah.
Well,
Now, if you want a little background, our COE didn't make up these questions. We went to our Quality Center of Excellence and said, hey, give us some questions. And these are the ones that, that they gave us. So you can talk to them, or we can talk to them. But one of those people are in this room. All right. All right, so these were the statements, and I've underlined the keywords here because those are the only ones I'm going to show on the chart. But I'm going to show you the Catalyte results from the assessment we did several months ago. There they are. So, based on this, what potholes do you see?
Results.
Results.
Stability
Automated.
Lots of not.
and coverage.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at and figuring that there's a couple of newer teams in there, like the green team.
Why do they think they've prevented everything if they're not using coverage, results, or automation?
Because it hasn't blown up in their faces.
They haven't done enough releases.
Yeah, they haven't had to deal with it yet.
It's not directly on fire.
All right.
Automated or not.
Indistinct haze.
So, coverage had a large spread, right? Result, a whole bunch of them were with, that spread in results. Even so, results didn't score that well. So I think there's room for improvement for everybody in results. One team did really poor, I don't want to say poor, but definitely scored low in the automated. Actually, two teams. And then with one team doing really well, or at least saying they did really well in automated, maybe this is an opportunity for knowledge sharing. So there are some drawbacks to this assessment tool. First of all, it's time consuming. We have to pull the data from Google Forms. We have to export the results. We have to merge the spreadsheets. We have to generate charts, and then we have to extract reports for the individual teams because we promised they'd get their individual reports. We're mortals, right? We're not experts in creating surveys. We don't know if 70% in one area is the same as 70% in another, and maybe we're missing something or prioritizing incorrectly. And it's not easy to compare teams or organizations over time because not only do we have all this analysis we have to do another round just to do that comparison over time. So we decided to go with the try a tool, and that's our next stop, and that's what we're in the middle of doing right now. So the tool's called Comparative Agility. It was created 10 years ago by Mike Cohn, who wrote Succeeding with Agile and User Stories Applied, and Kenny Rubin, who wrote Essential Scrum. It's now aligned with the Scrum Alliance, and that's how I have access to this tool. But it has 8 areas or 8 topics that they call dimensions, and they have a total of 66 questions where we had 70 questions. And they have 3 to 14 questions per area compared to our 5 to 8. And the topics that that tool covers are teamwork, which is like composition, communication, and working together. Requirements, which is minimizing the requirements done up front and doing just enough documentation. Planning, which is prioritization, work definition, predictable delivery of value. Technical practices, which is kind of like the XP stuff, so things like test-driven development and pair programming. Quality, which is building quality in at the source. That means writing good acceptance criteria, end-to-end testing and automation. Knowledge creating is making sure the team or organization is learning during their sprint reviews and retrospectives. Culture is work-life balance. I'm doing it out of order, sorry. Work-life balance, team stress, and sustainable pace. And outcomes is basically, is the team improving over time? So things like quality, productivity, customer satisfaction, are those improving? So this is what those statements look like. So they're a different set of quality questions than what we got from the Quality Center of Excellence. But for those who are in the back, it's product owners actively participate in the creation of acceptance criteria for each feature. All bugs are fixed during the iteration in which they are found. At the end of each iteration, there is little or no manual testing required. The team performs a variety of types of testing, including functional, performance, integration, and scalability each iteration. Team members who perform testing are involved and productive right from the start of each iteration. At the end of each iteration, the team has high-quality working software that it is comfortable being tested by people outside of the team. And the team has predefined and agreed upon criteria for considering a feature done. So let's take one of them. It has a different scale. So this one is all bugs are fixed during the iteration in which they are found. A is true, B is more true than false, C is neither false nor true, D is more false than true, E is false, F is not applicable. And if you put not applicable, then it's not counted in the team results. All right, and I'm just kind of curious. This is a different scale, and this is, being imposed by the tool. We didn't choose the scale. How do you like this scale compared to the other scale? Better, worse, same? Better? Same? Worse? All right, a mix. Diverse. All right. So we still get spider charts with the tool. We can see changes over time, so we can kind of compare how a team does compared to when they last took it. So like in this one, on number 47, they actually did worse, but we can see where they did better. But we can also compare teams to organizations to each other. We can compare teams from a client. We can do a lot of comparison, which is really powerful. We can do deeper dives into the data, so we can see within quality, even though it got a 3.67 average, there's an area where it got 3.31. We can look at those individual questions and see which question was the lowest. And we can look at the response distribution, so we can see where there are wide spreads of responses and maybe figure out why does some team members think that it's 4 and they're doing it more true than false, and some people think that it's not happening at all. So there's a presentation. Any questions? We have a couple minutes. Yeah.
This last slide that you showed before, where it showed the range of results, is that across all the teams or within one team's percent of responses at one time?
This might have been multiple teams because I was trying to find a good example. Yes.
The assessments that you discuss, are you suggesting they be done at every retrospective, or just like say once per project?
So the question is, how often do we expect this to happen? And our goal is to do this every quarter because it's really involved, and we want to kind of see things. We trust teams to work at the retrospective level on a sprint level. Every sprint, they can improve themselves, but we want to take these snapshots to see where the organization can improve. Yeah.
How widespread is the team? Are you talking about just engineering, QA, or are you including your other stakeholders, product management, marketing, sales?
We're looking at so the question is who is taking this? So it's everybody that's on for lack of a better term, the Scrum team. So it's the developers, QA, Scrum Master if there's one, or project manager, product owner or product manager that are working directly every day.
You ever tried to do it without the not true, not false to force people over the edge one way or the other?
When you say over the edge,
Make them, is it better or is it worse? Versus is not true, not false.
I don't know. We're not entirely sold on this tool yet, but we do like the analysis. We just don't like the fact that we can't control the questions. There's some questions we'd love to throw out and some questions we'd love to throw in. But the scale, I'm kind of with the audience. Some ways I like it, in some ways I don't. One more.
So you said this this model has as little as 3 questions and as many as 14 per area.
Yeah.
That's a pretty wide range.
Yes, that is true.
So what was only 3?
That was the knowledge sharing. So this has to do, are you doing retrospectives, are you doing sprint reviews?
Just one more question.
One more, last question.
You may have already mentioned this. Did you find that anonymity of the responses was an especially, critical requirement for these assessments?
I think so. I want people to be honest and open and not worry about some sort of retribution. So we really strive for anonymity when filling out surveys. So the only thing I know, like with this tool, is whether or not somebody answered the survey. All right. Thank you very much. This was fun.